What's up, people? Yugioh Master 88 here with a deck profile for you guys for the first time in a very long time. This is an upgraded. This is pretty much an update to the Seal of Orichalcos challenge that I did a long time ago. The challenge has been revived and it's active again. This is the new version of the deck, so without further ado, let's get started. I will be posting the rules of how the Orichalcos challenge works in the description below. And before I end this video today, I'll at least show you one or two combos of how this deck works. I'm not going to go through every single combo because it would just take too much of my time. So I think one or two will do it. So anyway, let's get started. First up, I am running one Orichalcos Shaman. Basically one Orichalcos Shaman and one Sorcerer. These two are pretty much my two headliners of my deck. Basically, what my Shaman does is, when it's normal summoned, I can special summon a level 4 or lower Orichalcos monster from my hand or deck. I can target up to 3 cards with different names in my graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, then I draw 2 cards. I can also change this card's level from 1 to 8. I can only control one Orichalcos Shaman on the field. I can only use each effect of Orichalcos Shaman once per turn and only once that turn. So it's a hard once per turn, basically. His attack and defense is not that good, but his effects make up for it. Next up here is Orichalcos Sorcerer. Basically, he's very simple. If he is special summoned by a level 4 or lower Orichalcos monster, I can special summon one level 4 or lower Orichalcos monster from my hand or deck. I can target one Synchro or Xyz monster in my graveyard and return it to the extra deck. I can change this card's level from 1 to 8, just like Shaman. If this card is used for a Synchro or Xyz summon, I can add one Orichalcos card from my deck or graveyard to my hand. I can only control one Orichalcos Sorcerer on the field, and I can only use each of his effects once per turn and only once that turn. Now we're going to get into some anime cards that you guys should recognize if you've seen Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 4 or if you've seen Florentine Yu-Gi-Oh's channel. And by the way, I'm going to give a shout out right now to Florentine Yu-Gi-Oh! Awesome guy, awesome content. I'll link his channel in the description below so you can see his content. But anyway, let's continue with some very recognizable cards. I'm running 2 copies of Orichalcos Gateway. This is one of the cards that Dartz used. Basically, I can pay 500 life points to special summon it, and while it exists on my field, any battle damage I take drops to 0 instantly. And if this card is and when it's sent to my graveyard, I can special summon Orichalcos Shunoros from my hand, deck, or graveyard. Yeah, so that's basically how he works. Next up is Orichalcos Shunoros. This guy can only be summoned if Gateway is sent to the graveyard. When this guy is summoned, I can bring out Orichalcos Dexia, Orichalcos Orichalcos. You guys should know how these both Dexias will work, but for those that don't know how they work, Dexia's attack points is always 300 attack points higher than the monster it's battling, and Orichalcos' defense points is always 300 defense points higher than the monster it's battling. And when Shunoros goes, these guys go, and when they all go, bang, Divine Serpent. When this guy is summoned, I drop my life points down to 0, and I discard my entire hand. But as long as he's on the field, I remain in the game, regardless of pretty much anything. But if you kill this thing, or send it to the graveyard, return it to my hand, no matter what, if you can get this guy off the field, you win. He has infinite attack and defense points, and in order for him to attack, I have to send the top 10 cards of my deck to the graveyard. Next up, Orichalcos Gigas. Basically, he starts out with 400 attack points, but each time he's destroyed, he gets much stronger. He gets 400 attack points every time he's resurrected. So he's a good beat stick, and I can show you one of the combos of my deck right now. Say, for instance, I have Torito out on board, and say, for instance, I do have the Seal of Orichalcos, which I'll show you the effects of the seal in just a minute. But say I have Seal on board, and say I have Torito and Gigas on board, I can just keep ramming Gigas into something, and it just keeps reviving, and I take no damage, period. So basically, that's one of the combos of the deck, and that's pretty much Gigas in a nutshell. Next up, Orichalcos Beetle. His effect. This guy has 1750 attack points. I mean, yeah, 1750 attack, 750 defense, and I can only use his effects if I have an Orichalcos field spell. Basically, if he's destroyed, I can either inflict 800 to you, or I can resurrect him. It's simple as that. And it's 800 for each card in your hand. So next up, Lord of the Orichalcos Army. He's a 2500 beat stick. He's pretty much the summon skull on my deck. But what makes him very useful is I negate the effects of all trap cards that target him. So basically, you cannot harm him with trap cards that target him, period. And during my draw phase, I can add one level 4 or lower Orichalcos monster from my deck to my hand instead of conducting a normal draw. So he's a Rhoda, basically. Next up, I'm running myself. My buddy Florentine Yugioh made this for me. This is known as Ricky the Fifth Swordsman. And basically, Orichalcos spell and trap cards I control cannot be destroyed by card effects, including set cards. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Darkness or one Orichalcos field spell from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can target one Darkness or Orichalcos monster in your graveyard, banish that target. This card gains the effect or effects of that target until the end phase. So basically, say for instance, the Seal of Orichalcos is in my graveyard. I banish it. This thing becomes the Seal of Orichalcos for one turn. So basically, and besides that, this thing is a 1500, 2000 defender. That's all it is. Next up, Orichalcos Magus. This thing gains 400 attack for each other Orichalcos monster I control. That's basically all it is just a beat stick. Next up, Orichalcos Magician. This thing is amazing. I can only control one face-up Orichalcos Magician girl, sorry. If you control the Seal of Orichalcos, you can special summon this card from your hand. This card gains 300 attack for every Orichalcos monster in either player's graveyard. Once per turn, you can discard one card, then add one Orichalcos card from your deck to your hand. So this thing is really good. Really good. Next up, Earthbound Immortal Quetzalcoatl. This is a custom Earthbound Immortal card. This thing's really good. There can only be one face-up Earthbound Immortal monster on the field. If there is no face-up field spell, this card is basically blown up. Your opponent cannot select this card as an attack target. This card can attack your opponent directly. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, equip the target to this card. This card gains 300 attack for each equipped card equipped to this card. When this card leaves the field because an opponent's card, either by battle or by card effect, you can draw one card for each equipped card that was equipped to this card. So basically, he's a another beat stick. Next up, I have two monsters here. Orichalcos Knight and Dark Orichalcos Knight. Now, these two have very different functions. But the thing is, they both have different attack stats. One is light, one is dark. They're both level 4 warriors, and this one has 1,700 attack points, while this one has 19. For my Orichalcos Knight, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, I could pay 500 life points to add an Orichalcos card from my graveyard to my hand. So it gets me all my resources back. For this guy, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can pay 500 life points to banish it. During the end phase of a turn you activated this card, this effect, you can shuffle one Orichalcos card in your graveyard into your deck, and if you do, draw one card. So this is recycling and drawing. Very good combination there. Next up, the Traveler of the Orichalcos. This is basically my Gravekeeper's Commandant for the deck, because when this card is normal summoned, I can special summon one level 4 Orichalcos monster from your hand or deck, but its effects are negated. Also, it cannot be used as a synchro material. You can discard this card to add one Orichalcos card from your deck to your hand. So basically, I can just pitch this thing, add any Orichalcos card I want. It's that simple. Next up, Orichalcos Priestess. 1,500 attack, 1,500 defense, light level 4. During each of my standby phases, I gain 500 life points for each other monster I control. Once per turn, and only once that turn, I can pay 1,000 life points to special summon a level 4 lower Orichalcos monster from my graveyard. However, that monster's effects are negated. I can only control one Orichalcos Priestess on the field. This thing is really good because, negated or not, I can just bring something back. It's just that simple. Okay. Next up is one of my favorite anime cards of all time. I use this constantly on Yugioh Pro. This is one of my favorites. Darkness Seed. This card is from Yu-Gi-Oh's GX Season 4. Night Shroud used this, or Darkness if you watch the Japanese version. But how this thing works is, if this thing goes to the graveyard by any means necessary, within 2 on your second standby phase after activation, let me read this thing. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate its effect. If you do, special summon it during your second standby phase after activation. If this card is special summoned by this way, it gains these effects. First effect immediately is that it can't be destroyed by battle, and 2, during my end phase, during each player's end phase, if my life points are below 4,000, they go back to 4,000. So I can replenish my life points really easily, and this also combos with Orichalcos Dutros as well. So basically, I got a life point engine, basically. So that's pretty much the second combo I wanted to show you guys, is I can combo this card and Orichalcos Dutros, which I have not shown you yet, and I can just keep getting life points that way. So that's combo number 2. Next up, Orichalcos Malevolence. All this thing really does, it's a 15 or beat stick to where once per turn during my main phase, I can change one defense position monster my opponent controls to attack. But this one has an additional effect on it. If this card inflicts battle damage to my opponent discards one random card. So I can pretty much get rid of their hand. Next up, another anime card from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Singularity Fiend. Basically, this thing is really useful, because during every player's turn, you can send this card and one spell card from your hand to the graveyard to negate the special summon of an opponent's monster and destroy it. So basically, discard this and any spell card I want, I can pretty much solemn warning a monster and not have to worry about paying any life points. So that's really good. Next up is Orichalcos Sorcerer. which is pretty much an Orichalcos version of Genzo, but he's been modified to work with the Orichalcos. He's a dark level 4, 1200 tax and defense. When this card is sent to the graveyard, add 2 Orichalcos cards from your deck to your hand. So, say for example, I pitch the Fang from my hand by a card effect, I can instantly get 2 Orichalcos cards. Next up, the main card of the deck, Triple Seal of Orichalcos. Now this thing is a modified version of the original Upper Deck Entertainment Seal, which, if you guys don't know, it's pretty much a very sought-after card. There's only like 15 copies in the world. But this is a modified version of the Upper Deck Entertainment Seal, and basically how it works is as follows. This card cannot leave the field. Also, its activation and effects cannot be negated. All monsters you control gain 500 attack. Your spell and trap zones are also treated as main monster zones. Monsters in your back main monster zones cannot be attacked while you control monsters in your front main monster zones. If a card or effect is activated, you can send this card from your hand to the grave, negate the activation if you destroy it. The soul of whichever duelist loses the duel is forfeited to the winner. So basically, if a card activates its effect, I can just pitch the Fang immediately. That's pretty much what it's there for, is just to get rid of card effects. Next up, Orichalcos Dutros. I send the seal to the graveyard to activate this. And during each of my standby phases, I gain 500 life points for each monster I control. And when an opponent's monster declares a direct attack, I contribute 1 monster to destroy the attacking monster. Next up, Triose. I can send Dutros to the grave to activate this. And just letting you know, Dutros and Triose gains basically each layer gains the previous layer's effects. So say for example, I had Seal on board, send it to grave, activate Dutros. Dutros gains the Seal's effects. Send Dutros to grave, get Triose. Triose gains both Dutros and the Seal's effects. What Triose does is it protects all my monsters from being destroyed by card effects. That's basically all it does. Because it says when a monster or monsters I control would be affected by the effect of my opponent's spell or trap, I can negate the activation and destroy it. So this gives all my monsters complete shielding from spells and traps. Next up, I have 2 Chosen Destinies, really simple spell card. I pay 1 life points to either add an Orichalcos card from my deck to my hand, or I destroy an existing Orichalcos card that's on my field, ignoring its effects that would prevent it from being destroyed. So, say for example, if I know I'm going to lose the Orichalcos Challenge, this is combo number 3 by the way, I can activate Chosen Destiny, pay 1,000, destroy my own seal, nobody's souls are taken. That's how it works. Next up, Orichalcos Gateway. This is pretty much my version of Orichalcos only it's a little bit better. I pay 1,000 life points to activate one of these effects. I can either oh no, I read that wrong. Once per turn, I can activate one of the following effects. I can either pay 500 to shuffle an Orichalcos card from my hand or graveyard back into my deck, then draw 1 card. Or 2, I can pay 1,000 life points to add 1 Orichalcos card from my deck or graveyard to my hand. So either way, I get something out of it. Next up, Anime Soul Charge. Don't need to explain even further. But I'll explain anyway. I pretty much resurrect as many monsters as I want from the graveyard, and I pay 500 for each of them. That's how it works. And sadly, those monsters cannot attack this turn. But if I get rid of most of them for Link summons and Xyz summons, the new monsters I summon can attack. That's how you get around that. Next up, Orichalcos Destroyer. I pretty much pay 1,000 life points to destroy all cards on the field. Every single one my opponent controls. Next, another anime card, Grave Arm. I can pretty much use this to destroy a monster on the field, and while that monster is in the graveyard, it cannot be special summoned. Orichalcos Shadow Seal. I can activate this card from my hand during every player's turn. I target a monster my opponent controls, equip this card to that target. The equipped monster has its effects negated. Also, I add one Orichalcos card from my deck to my hand. If this card is sent from the field to the grave, I add this card from my grave to my hand. I can only activate one Orichalcos Shadow Seal per turn. Next up, I run 2 copies of Orichalcos Transfer Draw. I shuffle an Orichalcos, Mirror Knight Culling, or Divine Serpent monster in my hand back into my deck, then I draw 2 cards. Next up, the Pillager. This allows me to look at my opponent's hand, select a card, and add it to my hand. That's another anime card. Rebirth Tablet. It's a nice card. It's a trap card. I can only activate this if a monster I control is destroyed by battle. I special summon one monster from my graveyard. Any monster I want. Next up, I am running Briar Transplant. Now, this card is a card from the manga. Basically, I can banish one card on the field, and this does not target. So, basically, Blue Eyes Max Chaos Dragon, Beetles, goodbye. Next up, Orichalcos Fissia. It's another trap card. I can tribute one Orichalcos monster and target up to 2 cards my opponent controls. Send these targets to the graveyard. So that's a really good nice. That's some good field removal. One Orichalcos Sword of Concealing. When this card is activated, I flip all monsters my opponent controls into face-down defense position. Those monsters cannot be changed for as long as this card remains face-up on the field. During my main phase, I can choose to destroy this card. Then the final one, Anime Grave Robber. Heck yes. Basically, I select one card in my opponent's graveyard and apply an appropriate effect. If it's a monster, I special summon it to my side of the field, ignoring all summoning conditions. If it's a spell or trap, activate on my side of the field and ignoring the activation requirements. So basically, I can either get a spell or a trap. It's really nice. Next up, for my extra deck, I am running 2 copies of the main monster in my deck, Firenet Link Master. I want to give a special shout out, by the way, to a very close friend of mine, Logan Godneys. This is for you, buddy. Thank you. And Firenet Link Master is it's a link monster. It's a link free. It is a Cyberse, and it requires 2 or more effect monsters. And it gains 500 attack for each monster it points to. Once per turn, if a monster this card points to would be targeted, you can change the target to this card and apply the effect or damage calculation. Also, this card is not destroyed. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target any number of cards in your graveyard, shuffle the target or targets into the deck, and you gain 300 life points for each one. So it does the same exact thing as Michael, but better. And it's a really nice beat stick, too. Next up, I run Orichalcos Smoke Trap. This is one of my Orichalcos Xyz monsters. It requires 2 level 6 Orichalcos monsters. While this card has Xyz materials, it's also a level 10 monster. Once per turn, you can attach 1 Xyz material from this card. Detach, sorry. Special summon 1 Orichalcos monster from your graveyard. Face up, special summon monsters my opponent controls cannot activate their effects while this card has Xyz material. Their effects are negated. You must control a face up the Seal of Orichalcos to resolve these effects. So basically, it's a beat stick and a wall combined. that says nope to your opponent's existing monsters effects. That's really good. Next up, Torito. Now how this thing works is it's a fusion monster, level 4 2k, and it must be special summoned from your extra deck by discarding one monster. When this card is special summoned, you can draw one card. When your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can discard one card to negate the attack. So it's really nice. Really nice. Next up, Orichalcos Shunoros. Now this is a monster that I ran years ago in my Orichalcos deck. If you guys seen one of my past Orichalcos builds, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. Now, how this thing works is simple. It requires 3 Orichalcos monsters. You can also special summon this card from your extract by banishing 2 Orichalcos monsters from your graveyard. When this card is summoned this way, you can add 1 Orichalcos card from your deck to your hand. This card gains 400 attack times the number of Orichalcos monsters in your graveyard. When your opponent activates a card or effect that would destroy 2 or more monsters you control, you can discard 1 Orichalcos card and negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. If this card is special summon, if this card is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can banish 1 other Orichalcos monster in your graveyard to special summon it during your next standby phase. And the final effect is, if you control a face-up Orichalcos field spell, you take no damage from battles involving this card. So it's a really nice fusion, really nice. Next up, Dark Gargant X. Now this one is one of my favorites. How it works is I can detach a material from this card in order to add an Orichalcos card from my deck to my hand. 2300 beat stick, it's really nice, and it requires 2 level 4 dark monsters. Really nice custom card. Next up, number 11 Big Eye, don't need to explain. Orichalcos Dragon. Now this thing is a beast, because what I can do with this guy is I can once per turn detach a material from it to add an Orichalcos card from my deck or graveyard to my hand, and it requires 2 level 4 Orichalcos monsters. This thing is amazing. It really circulates the deck and gets it going. Next up, Orichalcos Warlock of Orichalcos. 2 level 4 Orichalcos spellcaster monsters, which both my Shaman and Sorcerer are spellcasters. Once per turn, I can detach a material from this card to activate one of the following effects. I can either destroy 1 card my opponent controls, or I can discard 1 random card from my opponent's hand to the graveyard. So basically, either one works fine. Next up is another new monster, Data Loader. This is a Link 1 Link monster. It's a fire attribute, 800 attack. I can target 2, and it requires 1 monster to make this. So this is pretty much my Link Spider, but it's so much better. You can target 2 spell traps on the field, destroy them, and if you do, you can add 1 card with the same type as one of those cards from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Data Loader up to twice per turn. If this card is destroyed, destroy all monsters summoned from the extra deck. Which, that's really good. Blow up all extra deck monsters? I'll take it. Next up is Chiron, Keeper of Styx. Now this thing is a pretty good card. It requires 2 level 5 monsters, which thanks to my Orichalcos Shaman Sorcerer's modulating abilities, I can make this. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target a monster in either player's graveyard, special summon it, ignoring all summoning conditions. This card's activation and resolution is unaffected by Necro Valley. So say for instance, I was going to put this in a Gravekeeper's deck, it could work in there too. Or if somebody's playing Necro Valley, won't really matter. Next up, Alexandramore, Dragon of the Orichalcos. This thing is a pretty busted card. 2500 attack, 4000 defense points. It requires 4 Orichalcos monsters, 4 level 4 Orichalcos monsters. Once per duel, you can detach all Xyz materials from this card to destroy all cards on my opponent's side of the field. This card cannot attack unless you send the top 10 cards of your deck to the graveyard. So yeah, this thing's main purpose is to blow crap up. That's basically what it's there for. Next up, just a few staples to round up the deck. Photon Strike Bouncer, which is really nice. Very good to deal with monster effects. Next up, Mega Phantom Beast Draco Sack, and last but not least, Pilgrim Reaper. So yeah, this is my Orichalcos deck, people. I really hope you enjoyed this. It took a long time for me to get this thing up and running again. But officially now, the Orichalcos Challenge is back and active. I will have all the links in the description to help you understand the challenge, like the rules, for example. And I will also have a link to my Discord for those of you that want to challenge this deck. I don't do my challenges on Skype anymore. I now do Discord. Discord's been wonderful. So that's where the Orichalcos Challenge's new home is going to be. But anyway, people, I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. It's wonderful bringing this old challenge back again, and I'm hoping that it can stay a little longer this time. I really do. But anyway, people, this is Yu-Gi-Oh! Master 88 saying, see you in the next duel arena.